It takes the smallest acknowledgement to wake up. It takes the smallest acknowledgement to return to presence. It takes the smallest acknowledgement to, quote unquote, remind yourself of what you woke up to. What do I mean by acknowledgement? It's an acknowledgement of the one thing that's not a thing. It's an acknowledgement of the one thing that is not of the mind. It is an acknowledgement of the one thing that has no limitations. It's an acknowledgement of the one thing that is undeniable. It is an acknowledgement of the one thing that is never not here, never not the case. It is an acknowledgement of the one thing that is always inherently free. It is an acknowledgement of the one thing that is always at rest and, paradoxically, doesn't negate movement or action. It's an acknowledgement of that which comes before any ideas about yourself, any ideas about spirituality or the world or life. This that I'm pointing to right now, right here, is right here, right now for you as well. And a mere acknowledgement of that, a turning toward that, is enough. It's powerful. Maybe you haven't had a shift in identity or an awakening, but acknowledging it one time, right now, acknowledging that which is beyond the doubts in the mind saying, oh, I don't know what that is. I don't understand. I don't know. That's the familiar. That's the well-worn path of thought. Acknowledging that which is prior to that. What's prior to the thoughts? What makes those thoughts even possible? What is it that is aware? What is it that is here, regardless of whether the thoughts are here or not, regardless of whether there's a doubt or not? An acknowledgement, which is like touching in, it's a turning toward right now, is a very, very powerful act. And it will get the ball rolling. As I mentioned, if someone hasn't had an awakening, this mere acknowledgement will clarify something. It may happen in a deep place beyond your capacity to discern what's happening in this moment, but it will plant a seed, and that will happen again at some point. That acknowledgement, that touching in will become enticing again at some point, and it will occur, and it will become more and more interesting, more and more a viable option in your experience right now. It will be more and more juicy, for lack of a better way of saying it, until you realize it's the most important thing in your life. It's the most important thing you've ever come in contact with. It's the most interesting thing, and you can't name it, and you don't need to name it. There's nothing to name, because if you name something, you're basically saying it's this, but it's not all this other stuff. What I'm pointing to has no limitation, so it's not one thing versus another. So it really has no name, and it doesn't need a name. And the more you touch in, the more you'll realize that, until it starts to become very profound and very prominent in your experience. It may feel like the background of all experience. It may even feel like the foreground of all experience. It may feel like all of experience and all that which experiences it. It may feel like awareness and everything that awareness is aware of. The sights and sounds and movement, sensations, and all of it. It may simply be all of that right now for you. And in that case, there's no way not to acknowledge it. Everything is an acknowledgement of it. Every sound is an acknowledgement of it. The sound is the acknowledgement of sound, acknowledging itself as everything that ever was, everything that ever could be, as the universe sounding, as the universe making sound, as emptiness moving, as emptiness appearing as the shapes, appearing as the intimacy, appearing as the empty radiance, appearing as the transient nature of all appearances. And that's an experience, or actually an acknowledgement and a realization of interpenetration. Interpenetration of awareness with apparent objects of awareness. Interpenetration of awareness with texture, sensation, sound. Interpenetration of that absolute realization and recognition right now of unity with this transient nature, that nothing is abiding and nothing is even actually existing. But those are interpenetrated, the radiant, luminous, intimate nature of all experience, interpenetrating with the empty nature of all experience. So this tiny acknowledgement that may seem like it happens in a very discrete way, and maybe it doesn't happen again for a while, and then it happens again, and then it becomes more prominent. Then it becomes the most interesting thing to you. Then it becomes something that you feel like you can give all of your attention, all of your heart to. You can just open to it, regardless of what else happens around you. Regardless of what's happening in the mind and the thoughts and all of it, you can give yourself fully to it. And then, well, we can't even really talk about what comes next, but then it's everything. It's all of experience, all of the apparent mental constructs that are seeming to define experience. They just fade into the background, and this radiant, zero distance, luminous experience replaces everything. And then we realize what we were touching into all that time was nothing subtle. It wasn't a momentary, fleeting taste of something ineffable. It is the nature of everything and the nature of nothing. And so I wanted to point out how simple this all really is. You don't have to understand the process. You don't have to understand anything. Just acknowledge, to the degree you can in this moment, the nature of presence that is beyond you as you know yourself. That is beyond you as the one who's identifying with doubt, as that which is beyond you, the one who's identifying with confusion. Just touch in, just acknowledge. Just a little bit of acknowledgement goes a long way. Even if it's followed by 1,000 doubts, it doesn't matter. Just acknowledge it one time right now.